Thank you for downloading this Brum Radio podcast. For more podcasts, visit brumradio.com.
And now, for your listening pleasure, it's the Brum Picture Show, brought to you by Brum Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Brum Picture Show, the film show brought to you by Birmingham-based community cinema collective Screen B14. On this week's show, to celebrate the release of his new film Nosferatu, we're going to be talking about Robert Eggers, of course the director of The Witch, The Lighthouse, The Northman, and that's it so far, but it's quality, not quantity, guys. Yeah. My name is Paul Vernon, and joining me today, back from her winter break, it's our very own filmmaking genius and close personal friend of Robert Eggers, and by that I mean she once asked him a question as a Q&A. It's the great Count Nadine O'Mahony. How's it going, Nadine?
Good, yeah. I've taken a deep dive into Robert Eggers.
With his consent?
With his consent.
Good.
And I'm ready to talk about all things Eggy.
Very good. Well, thanks for joining me again, Nadine. Now, before we move on to the news section of the show, we need to get serious for a moment, okay?
Oh, no.
So, yeah. Now, regular listeners to the show will remember that sometimes we were joined on this show by a guy called Rory, who...
I'm not sure I remember him.
Well, that's probably for the best, because now this Rory, he often had outlandish excuses for not being on the show. And I'm afraid to say it turns out these outlandish excuses were covering up something far more sinister. Now, I'm afraid to say, Rory, this time he's gone for good.
What?
He's not coming back. Now, I'm not going to get into details. You all read the tabloids, but it's safe to say that the word scandal doesn't even begin to cover it. In fact, the Oxford English Dictionary are currently holding a meeting at the moment to devise a new word to describe what he did.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to just vehemently refute the notion that we at the Brum Picture Show were in any way complicit in or had any knowledge of Rory's actions. We were just as shocked as you when we saw the headlines on TMZ. So just to make it clear, from now on, we will be removing all imagery of Rory from any future Brum Picture Show merchandise. That's including mugs, t-shirts, and lunchboxes. And anyone currently owning merchandise featuring the likeness of Rory is instructed to send it to the Brum Radio studios for incineration.
Or just scribble it out, maybe.
Or just scribble it out, yes. But incineration would be the safer option. So, yeah. So we'd like to stress that from now on, all proceeds from the Brum Picture Show merchandise will be going to a charity that has been set up for his victims. And furthermore, we will be going back and re-editing all previous episodes of the Brum Picture Show featuring Rory and replacing him with an AI Christopher Plummer.
Ooh.
So, yeah, you got that to look forward to, I suppose.
I do like Christopher Plummer.
Yes. Shame he's dead, but yeah, it's still better than Rory. So yes, this is the only statement that we're going to make on this matter at the moment, because we don't want to say anything that could affect the trial. So with that, we wash our hands of our former co-presenter and move on with our lives.
Oh dear, I'm supposed to go and see a movie with him at the Mac.
I would not.
Oh.
Yeah, I wouldn't be associated.
I haven't read these headlines.
I didn't realise he'd made bail. But, okay.
Oh, hi, it's Paul from the future here, speaking to you from my editing cave. I've just been reminded by the Brum Picture Show lawyers that in the past, when I've said outrageous things about Rory for comedic effect, some people have taken my words at face value, and as such, some of what I just said there could be considered libelous. So, just to be clear, Rory has not been involved in any kind of scandal. In fact, the real reason he's not on the show anymore is that he has moved to Los Angeles to try and make it big in Hollywood. Now, some of you might say that it's a bit of a coincidence that the moment Rory moves to LA, the city burns to the ground, but we're absolutely not saying that he had anything to do with that. although we're not saying that. So I think that's us legally covered. Back to the show.
First of all, as always, it is time for the news section. Nadine, anything catch your eye in the news this week?
Yes, awards season is on the go. We've just had the Golden Globes last night, which I haven't had a chance to watch, but I have a list of the winners. Might be interesting for those who want to know who might win the Oscars. So it's going to be like a forerunner. So we're going to have Golden Globes, BAFTAs, and then eventually the Oscars. Just some, I won't go through every winner.
Yes, please
But
don't.
some interesting ones. Drama motion picture won by The Brutalist, which hasn't been released here yet, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
It's a Brady Corbett epic film shot on a really tiny budget of like 10 million or something.
Only 10 million.
Tiny. Compared to a Marvel, that's like a 20th of a Marvel. Or like 10 Ty West films. This is how we
the Ty West scale of budgeting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Demi Moore won Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy, blah, 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 for The Substance.
Yeah.
So, she's on the comeback trail there.
She
so
is.
we're all excited for that.
She said it was the first thing she'd won in 45 years, didn't she?
Oh, bless
Oh,
her.
bless.
Bless her. Adrian Brody won for The Brutalist for actor in a drama motion picture. Zoe Saldana won for supporting actress. Sebastian Stan won for his role in A Different Man, which is really interesting because not that long ago he was bemoaning that no one would do an interview with him because he's done the film The Apprentice about Trump as well. So both are kind of up for awards, that and A Different Man. And nobody wanted to do they have these actors on actors interviews and everybody was too scared to talk about his Trump film.
Wow.
And the people that run actors on actors, I think it's Variety, I could be wrong, they concurred and said, yeah, nobody wanted to do it. So it's nice he's won something, even though people are just too darn scared to talk to him.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's loads, Brady Corbett won Best Director and Emilia Perez won Best Foreign Language Film, and there were some other winners as well. But I thought that was really interesting because we haven't even seen The Brutalist yet.
No.
So we don't even know if it's good.
No. When's that out here?
Hang on. I don't know.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
I don't know is the answer.
Okay. Sorry, I
But
forgot.
yeah, some exciting news there, and be interesting to see if it predicts the Oscars at all.
Yeah, I mean, don't most people say the Golden Globes is a joke?
I don't know.
I think they do.
I don't talk to most people. But it's just it's an accumulative thing. You've got to see who wins all, just because they've won the Golden Globe doesn't mean they're going to go on and win an Oscar. And they have more categories and they include like telly and stuff. Shogun won a bunch of awards. So it's not an, exact, shoo-in, but it certainly shows us that, The Brutalist is a contender, which I was surprised. I was thinking Denis Villeneuve's going to come in this year and just win for Dune 2 and it's going to be really boring, but it's like, this is interesting. Emilia Perez has done really good. I haven't seen it. So it's interesting. It's exciting.
Yeah. Wonder how long it'll be before the Oscars start doing TV.
TV shows.
Yeah. If the Golden Globes are doing it, why not?
I mean, they don't even really want to do streaming films.
No.
They've been quite strict on that. So I think
So it'll take a while, that's what you're saying.
Well, I don't think it's their thing because they're the Motion Picture Academy.
Yeah. Television is
Golden
pictures
Globes
in motion.
is Hollywood Foreign Press.
Right.
So it's a different thing. But I think they want to differentiate themselves and say, no, look, we're the upmarket,
Okay.
feature film.
This is for cinema.
Yeah, cinema.
Yes.
The cineasts. So.
Very, very well.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting stuff. Yes, I suppose it's not long till the Oscars. Yay.
Wow.
I know.
This is a film show, Paul.
Yeah.
You must be excited about the Oscars.
So
it's
excited.
mandatory.
Of course.
I meant to say as well, and Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross won Best Original Score for Challengers.
Yeah, very exciting. And Elton John was very excited about that. I saw the clip of them announcing the winner, and Elton John was up there. co-announcing it, and he went, "Yay!"
He's got taste.
Which is cool.
He knows what good music is.
Yeah. I wonder if he's worked with Trent.
That would be a collaboration.
Now. Yeah. Well, stranger things have happened.
He's worked with Eminem.
Yeah. So
why not?
There we go.
And Blue.
So yeah, look forward to that.
Band. So.
Well, thanks for that, Nadine. Appropriate for this episode, I've got some Robert Eggers based news / things Robert Eggers has said.
Oh,
It depends how you want to frame it. First of all,
I've probably already heard all of this when I met him in person.
You will, and to be honest, I was expecting you to come out with all this stuff, but that's fine. Fine.
I wouldn't want to bore people with, my close personal relationship with Robert Eggers.
That's true.
Since you brought it up.
Yes. So first of all, Robert Eggers has said that he has offered Willem Dafoe roles in his next 2 movies. Yeah. So that's good, getting him locked in.
Not exactly news, but
yeah, exactly.
Good to know.
And he also says Home Alone is a masterpiece. Did you see him saying that?
Yes, he's a big fan of Chris Columbus.
Yes, so this is from World of Real, and he said, I watch this once a year, talking about Home Alone. He thinks it's a masterpiece. It's a timeless movie. It is impeccably photographed, and unlike many movies in this kind of genre, it's not overshot. It's a really well-crafted film. And he goes on to call Home Alone director Chris Columbus one of the masters of orthodox Hollywood storytelling. Now, you might say this is a strange thing for him to come out and say, but of course, oddly enough, he and Christopher Columbus have had a very strong relationship since Chris Columbus saw The Witch and The Vivitch and liked it. And he's been a mentor to Eggers ever since. And of course, he was the main creative producer on Nosferatu, and indeed has exec produced other Robert Eggers films. So yes, the director of Harry Potter, Mrs. Doubtfire, Home Alone, him and Robert Eggers, they're like that.
Yeah, I knew that.
Well, I know, but it's interesting, isn't it?
If you don't know.
There you go. As adjacent to that, we talk about Harry Potter. David Fincher says he met with Warner Brothers to direct Harry Potter and told the studio, I want it to be kind of creepy. And they were like, no. So that was that. But can you imagine David Fincher torturing a young Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson by making them do 200 takes? I'd like that.
Oh, wow. Can you imagine a world, though, where the Harry Potter films, apart from, of course, the best one, which was filmed by Quaran, but where the other films were also filmed by auteur film directors?
Yeah.
We could have had the Paul Schrader Harry Potter.
Yeah. Terrence Malick.
And The Lonely Man.
Yeah.
We could have had, the Terrence Malick one. Maybe I'd love to have seen a Tim Burton Harry Potter.
Yeah, that would probably be too on the nose, wouldn't it?
Possibly animated and in black and white.
Yeah.
That would have been really cool.
Stop motion.
Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, no, all of these are good suggestions. Yeah. But no, that didn't happen. Back to Robert Eggers. His next film is rumoured to be...
Ooh.
Do you know this?
I'm not sure.
It's rumoured to be a remake of Labyrinth.
Oh, yeah, I think I heard something about this.
Or a sequel.
A sequel, that's what I heard.
Yeah, because apparently back in 2020, there were rumours that Doctor Strange director Scott Derrickson had signed on to do a sequel to Labyrinth. Then nothing was heard about that again. And now it's been rumoured, at least, that Robert Eggers is set to write and direct a new Labyrinth film for Sony and the Jim Henson Company. Ooh. So does that mean Willem Dafoe is going to be David Bowie?
No, he's going to be the big monster dude.
Big monster dude. There we go. You heard it here first.
Or maybe he'll be the... see if you can guess who this is, listeners. Yeah. Would you like a cup of tea? The caterpillar, isn't it?
Oh, right, yeah. So there you go. That'll be nice if that happens.
I hope it's shot in a square aspect ratio on black and white film stuff.
That no longer exists.
with an imposing score.
Yeah. One last piece of Eggers-related news. Nicholas Hoult has Bill Skarsgård's prosthetic penis in a frame at home.
Yeah. And given to him by... Robert Eggers as a gift.
So obviously Bill Skarsgård didn't want it.
Yeah, I thought that was it was interesting. Yeah, because I wondered, did it come up in conversation one day? Was Nick like, you know what I'd love to have?
Well, apparently it came about because there was a scene where Bill Skarsgård is slurping Nicholas Holt's blood. And Robert Eggers asked afterwards, "How was that for you?" And Holt said, "I could feel his prosthetic penis on my leg." And Robert Eggers took that as, oh, clearly that's what I should give.
Well, he obviously,
yeah.
I think he may have misinterpreted that.
Yeah, he probably wasn't saying that was a good thing. But yes, and another little addition to that tale is when the gift arrived, the frame had broken.
Oh no!
So Nicholas Holt had to take it to go and get it fixed. And the guy in the shop, Nicholas Holt, says he didn't even blink the first time. And then when I went back to pick it up, I think he'd clocked how weird it was that I was framing this vampire penis. And he was like, "Is this some kind of collector's piece?" And Nicholas Holt says, "You could say that." So
that is quite funny.
You are listening to the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio, and today, to celebrate the release of Nosferatu, we are going to be talking about its director, Robert Eggers, of course, also director of The Witch, The Lighthouse, The Northman, now Nosferatu, and potentially in future, Labyrinth. And maybe a Home Alone remake.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, that I'd like to see, although he says he'd never make a comedy, but I bet he'd do that.
I don't know. I've seen The Lighthouse. There's a lot of fart jokes in there.
Exactly. That's very true. And also, I would love to see just a hyper-realistic, really dark version of Home Alone by Robert Eggers.
Really
like in the 18th century, and Macaulay Culkin's in like a child labour camp or something like that. And then,
Well, I feel like the original Nightmare on Elm Street is kind of a precursor to Home Alone. There's a lot of booby trapping and setting Freddy on fire and all sorts. So
that's true. Yeah, what a rip-off.
Yeah.
Chris Columbus.
Exactly.
God. Now, anyway, so yes, Robert Eggers. Now, Nadine, before the show, you texted me to ask, do you think Robert Eggers is a Satanist? And I said, sure, why not? So Nadine, do you think Robert Eggers is a Satanist? Did you ask him this at the Q&A screening you went to? Sorry, Nadine's just fallen off her chair. She'll be back in a moment. No, I'm putting that out there. I thought that's a good way to start this section. Answer me.
I don't know is the answer, which is why I was asking you. I know he's very interested in the occult.
Yeah.
And being interested in the occult doesn't mean you're an occultist.
But
it probably helps.
You suspected it enough to ask me.
I thought you might have an opinion on it.
But yeah, I know I did. I was like, sure, why not? But yes, that is Robert Eggers' thing, isn't it? He's interested in folklore, the occult, and period detail.
Yeah, and he definitely seems like the kind of guy who'd be really into heavy metal music, which again doesn't make you a Satanist, but
it helps.
Exactly. Where were we going after that?
Okay, so he's a big history buff. All of his films are set in the olden times,
the past,
and I think I was listening to some podcast with him, possibly talking to Christopher Columbus, and he made a point of saying that he'd just never make a film in the modern day because the idea of photographing a mobile phone kills him. He just hates the idea of ever having to put a mobile phone on screen, or cell phone as he calls it, being an American, and that's why he likes doing things in the olden times,
because he hates modernity.
But yes, that's quite a barrier to put yourself though, because whilst yes, I'm sure filming a mobile phone is boring, but equally it takes a lot of effort doing all these old-timey films of period detail and sets and costumes and stuff. So
he loves all that though.
Yeah, he loves it.
That's why he's in it for.
Good on him.
He actually said when I met him in person, he said that adding period detail to a film or making it more period accurate doesn't make a better film. There's loads of accurate films that are rubbish, but he just loves the process of it, and he loves getting, diving into the research and getting lost in the research. So it's just part of his process. It's something that he is interested in. He was interested in Shakespeare. I think he performed as a Shakespearean actor. He can write in Shakespearean English, so he likes all of that stuff, really.
Yes, of course, his first film was The Witch, and yes, it was set in witchy times.
Yeah, and I think what made that film stand out for me is how accurate the dialogue was to the time. So it wasn't a bunch of Puritans speaking like we speak. They were saying things like, dost thou wants to go to the field and tarry a while, or it's not an actual line from the film.
No.
But they do say things like, dost thou wants to live deliciously, which is a great line, but not something that people really say anymore these days, sadly.
Unfortunately.
But interestingly, because the Witch is a horror and Nosferatu is a horror, and all his films, whether they're straight horrors or not, seem to have that influence. Very gothic. I think he's a goth. I don't know if he's a Satanist, but he's definitely got a goth vibe. Wears all black, rings on all his fingers and bells on all his toes. But he was really scared of horror as a child. Even The Wicked Witch of the West was too much for him.
Well, that was too much for everyone, wasn't it, really?
We didn't like Freddy, none of that. So he kind of got into horror through Nosferatu and through the original silent film. But he's got a wide range of tastes, man.
Yeah.
He likes Home Alone. He likes Mary Poppins.
Yeah, Robert Eggers' Mary Poppins. Paid to see that.
Wow.
Is that happening?
In The Witch, no. But I feel, getting back to The Witch, that the ending, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but I was rewatching that last night thinking, this is like Mary Poppins. And then I saw that Mary Poppins is one of his favourite films. I thought, yeah, makes sense. So,
I remember the evil goat in Mary Poppins.
Yeah. But
yes.
no, it's interesting because it was the film that launched Anya Taylor-Joy's career as well. So he sort of discovered her.
Yeah, the goat never worked again because he was a nightmare to work with, apparently.
Charlie. He gored, I shouldn't laugh, he gored one of the actors. He gored Ralph Ineson and he had to go to hospital.
Yeah, that's going to get you cancelled, isn't it?
Which I think is probably why he's cast Ralph in his latest film as a kind of apology. Yeah. But some interesting facts about The Witch, or The Witch, if you're going to pronounce it correctly. It was shot on digital. His only film to be shot on digital, and purely for budget reasons.
Yeah, they didn't give him the money for all that celluloid back then.
Well, they wanted to shoot everything very naturalistically, which means using natural light, which is cheaper, but a lot harder to do with film stock, which does tend to need a lot of light. So digital was a compromise. It's his only film as well not to have Willem Dafoe in it. And it seems like it'll be his only film for a while not to have Willem Dafoe in it.
I like to think that the goat was actually Willem Dafoe in disguise.
I mean, he's a great actor.
And just Willem was just like, I'm going to use this as an excuse to be as difficult as possible.
Yeah. Probably.
Anyway.
But it's his version of a Puritan's nightmare. So everything, all the magic and the supernatural in that film is presented as real because he says that's how Puritans would have seen it.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a forerunner for Nosferatu, which we'll get into later, because it's his... it was his only film up until recently that had a female protagonist. It's all about female power and natural power, ability to connect with the supernatural, and that being misinterpreted or seen as a bad thing. It's kind of Ken Loach in the 17th century, he called it. A lot of people's favourite Robert Eggers film.
Oh, that's silly.
Which I think is silly.
It's not even Robert Eggers' favourite Robert Eggers film.
Exactly. But it's kind of Robert Eggers for people who don't like Robert Eggers, I suppose.
Okay.
But yeah, I did get the feeling when I met him in person that he didn't quite pull off whatever it was he wanted to pull off in that film. I think shooting on digital, for one, being a compromise.
Yeah.
But it was a great debut. It made money. And it got him on people's radars.
There we go. And then came The Lighthouse.
Yes. No, I really loved The Lighthouse.
Yeah. So it's Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe in a lighthouse. And
what more could you want?
Yes. And Robert Eggers described The Lighthouse as being about how nothing good can come from two men trapped in a giant phallus.
It's got a point.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because he'd written, as I said, he'd done The Witch.
Mm-hmm.
That was very, quite feminist in some ways, female protagonist. And then he felt himself like, why am I doing this film about two guys? And he was writing this with his brother as well. But then he said he realised it was about toxic masculinity, and it was, it still had something to say about gender roles and so on. It was inspired as well by a true story from 19th century Wales about two lighthouse keepers. I don't know if it went down exactly as it does in this film. If it did, that is shocking. Fun facts, they built their own 70-foot lighthouse for this film. They wanted to shoot in a location that was, had all these elements, this wind and this rain, but also that had road access. They found the perfect place. There was a lighthouse there, but it was the wrong time period. So they built their own because they wanted full control over it. He meticulously plans his shots with his amazing cinematographer who needs an Oscar now, Yarin Blatsky, I think his name is. Blaschke, yeah. But I just thought that was really cool. And it's also the closest Rob Pattinson has ever got to punching a director. He said they laughed about it, but there was a particular scene where it was raining, but the rain wasn't reading on the camera because they were shooting in black and white film stock with very old lenses. And so he was just kind of spraying him with a hose as well. And he says, it feels like you're just spraying me with a hose. And internally, he really wanted to punch him. But Robert said he didn't get any of those vibes, and that Robert Eggers, I should say, and that Robert Pattinson was very professional.
Oh, nice. Also, there's a scene, isn't there, with Willem Dafoe eating dirt or having dirt shoved it, or is it?
Yeah.
Robert? And that was real dirt.
Was it? I thought it was chocolate cake.
No, it's not. Real dirt.
Real dirt.
Real dirt.
That was unnecessary.
Well, authentic, innit?
Well, I heard that they had very different acting approaches, and that Willem was a bit more chill, and Robert was like, I need to pee myself and puke and live this insanity. But I wasn't there.
No.
But they were quite different in their acting approaches. And as I said previously, I think, the Vivitch is obviously definitely a folk horror. This is his closest to being a comedy.
Yeah.
It's very dark, so please don't go into it thinking, oh, Nadine said this was a comedy. But there's lots and lots of fart jokes and other kind of sort of puerile humour. And I guess that's what would happen. Two dudes living alone together at the end of the world. There will be some gases involved. But why I love this film, absolute exquisite cinematography. I mean, really, really beautiful. They've done everything they can to recreate a film from that period. It's got this almost square aspect ratio. It's shot on this black and white film stock with these really old lenses. The compositions of the shot are beautiful. The lighting of the shots is some of the shots in the lighthouse with the reflections of the glass on the faces of the actors are some of the most beautiful shots I've ever seen. I mean, it's got this beautiful dreamlike atmosphere, and it's just really exquisite, meticulous, a real work of art. And of all his films, I would say it is the most nakedly artistic, art house effort of his. And it really feels like a film from another period or from another world even. So I really, really love it for the visual element. It's just, and the sound design and the music and all of that is great too.
And yes, and then after this small art house film about Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson farting in the lighthouse, they were like, let's give him loads of money to make a historical epic about Vikings.
Of course, the natural next move.
Yeah, The Northman.
The Northman. Yeah, I was kind of put off by the marketing of this because I really loved the lighthouse, and it was so, like I said, art house and exquisite and chamber piece. And I don't know, something in the marketing of this put me off. I put off going to see it, and then when I watched it, I blooming loved it. It was great. Right from the beginning, there's this like tone, the sound design, the music. It wasn't what I was expecting. I was worried it would be compromised because everybody's speaking in English. They're not speaking in old Norse, Viking whatever language they would have spoke. You know, and it's got proper famous people in it, like Nicole Kidman and Ethan Hawke, and not like some weird, obscure British character actor. But it is still a banging film. It's an action movie. It's a revenge movie. It's his take on the Hamlet story, but set in Viking times, based on Icelandic sagas and co-written by Icelandic poet Stjörn. I don't know how to say that.
Sure.
Stjörn. And Björk's in it.
Björk.
Of course. So yeah, it's not Gladiator.
No.
He said that, and the studio, he felt like the studio were on board at first with his more art house, very long take approach. Then there was some previews and they got kind of scared and they were like, can you make it more Gladiator? And he's kind of like, oh, well, I don't know. So he had to kind of...
how to do that.
Well, the thing is, he doesn't shoot a lot of coverage because he's so meticulous and everything is storyboarded. There isn't endless options of like, oh, well, let's edit this from this angle and that angle, because he doesn't shoot stuff that he doesn't want to use, which makes sense. So that was a bit of a head scratcher for him, but I think he had to speed up the beginning. Beginning was a bit too slow, and some people felt like if you didn't understand anything about Vikings, you'd be lost. So it would have been interesting to see his original vision for this. I know, like I said, it had to compromise, but it was a big budget movie. It went over budget because of COVID, so it makes sense. They want to see their money back. I think it's definitely worth watching. If you haven't seen it, give it a go. Great score, great sound design, visually fantastic. Again, same cinematographer that is used on all his films, same production designer, same costume designer. Willem Dafoe's in it for 5 minutes, which is great. Flopped at the box office, but it made its money back on VOD. But he did say he felt like this was a film that was way too big for his britches. But after he made it, he felt like he was a real director and that he could take on anything. So I think, maybe not the purest Eggers film. It is a Skarsgård vehicle. He'd been wanting to make a Viking movie for 10 years, but it's still great fun, and it has that dark element, and it's a really good watch. I've watched it about 3 times. It's really good.
I've only watched it once. I need to revisit it because I remember nothing about it, to be honest, and I think I keep confusing it in my mind with The Green Knight, which is a different film. Completely
different film.
Yeah.
It's much bigger and it's much more epic, I'd say.
Okay.
And I'd say it's less kind of esoteric and weird.
Okay.
I would say.
Would you?
Yeah.
Very good. But yes, that's a good start, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a good 1, 2, 3 for a film career.
Low budget horror, arty, weird lighthouse character piece.
Yeah.
Big budget action film starring a Skarsgård.
Yeah. But yes, as you say, The Northman didn't do very well, but my goodness, has Nosferatu done well?
Yeah.
And that is what we'll be talking about next.
Ooh.
You are listening to the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio, and today we've been talking about Robert Eggers to celebrate the release of Nosferatu, and only the second remake of Nosferatu in 102 years. It's pretty good going.
I suppose Shadow of the Vampire wasn't a remake.
No, it was not. It was just about
like
making Nosferatu.
Yeah. But
of course, yes, Nosferatu, the 1922 classic, and that was again remade in 1979 by Werner Herzog. So it's interesting. So I had actually not seen the first 2 Nosferatus until after Nosferatu 1. Yes, I hadn't seen Nosferatu 1 or Nosferatu before watching Nosferatu 3. So yeah, I actually, in the space of 24 hours, watched all of the Nosferatu films in reverse chronological order. So I started with the Eggers version, went to Herzog, and then watched the original. It was an experience.
Wow.
So yeah, but I will say, I think I like the Eggers one best.
Oh, that's good.
Yes. So there you go. That's enough.
There you go.
That's our review of that then.
But saying it's been hugely popular because I, of course, had seen it weeks ago.
Yes, in your bougie London screening.
Exclusive screening with Robert Eggers. But I thought it'd be fun to watch it again, and I wanted to see you react to it for the first time. But we couldn't find a screening where with this. They were booked up.
Insane! I've never had this much difficulty trying to go see a film because I was going to go see it. There was like 2 or 3 days. I was like, right, I'm going to go see Nosferatu today. I'll go to book my ticket full. And, I don't want to sit next to other people. Yeah. So, I wound up seeing it quite late.
But it worked out for the best because we timed it semi-intentionally to coincide with the snow.
Yeah.
So I got to walk home through the trees in the snow, just like Nicholas Hoult.
Yeah, there you go. But yes, so this is Robert Eggers' 4th film, and originally it was going to be his 2nd film. So this was announced all the way back in 2015, and originally Harry Styles was going to be in it instead of Nicholas Hoult. Yeah. And then there was a point where Mads Mikkelsen was going to be Count Orlok, and Bill Skarsgård would have played Nicholas Holt's character. Yes, but now
Willem Dafoe was going to play Orlok at one point.
Yeah.
Even though he'd already played Orlok.
Yeah, exactly. In Shadow of the Vampire, of course. Yeah. So there you go. But yes, now we have a version with the unrecognisable Bill Skarsgård doing a very... which is interesting, because obviously the original Nosferatu... it's silent, so you don't hear him speak at all. Yeah. And then Herzog's Nosferatu, it sounds like Klaus Kinski. So it's all very nasal. It's like, so this is a completely different interpretation of the character in many ways. So yes, Nadine, what did you think of Nosferatu?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously thought it was great. Having been a fan of his films previously, and watching it for the first time was a really immersive experience. So, as I said previously, he and his cinematographer love these very long one-ers, these shots that, with no cuts, just one long take. And he felt like in The Northman, they were a bit obvious, but they were a bit more subtle in this. But it makes it feel really immersive. And I like to sit at the front of the screen as well. So it felt like I was entering into this weird fairy tale kingdom that he'd created. I mean, we've done an episode on vampires before. Please check it out if you haven't checked it out already.
It's called the Vampire episode.
Yeah. But Robert Eggers' version of a vampire is a bit different. He wanted to go beyond the cinematic version and beyond, even the literary versions of like Dracula and Polidori's the vampire. He wanted to go back to the folklore vampire, which is basically a reanimated corpse. So not a sexy vampire, basically. And I think that's interesting because there is a lot of psychosexuality in this film. There is this dark sexual element, but it's not the seductive vampire. It's not Bela Lugosi's charming, cape-wearing, sort of hypnotic, gentleman. This is a dead guy. He's a rotting corpse, a Cossack with the hairstyle that a Cossack would have had, which he was very, he knows people won't like the look, but he says it's historically accurate.
Well, yeah, and other people have pointed out on Twitter as well, if you look at pictures of Vlad the Impaler, who, of course, Dracula was based on, looks pretty similar. And
in the novel, he's described in a similar fashion.
There you go.
But but the interesting thing is it differentiates it from a lot of cinematic vampires, and it's not that gory.
No, and it's a 15. I was kind of disappointed when I found out it was a 15, but it was still pretty nasty.
Yeah, it is. I think we should warn people, if you don't like supernatural stuff, if you don't like things that are dark, this definitely has overtones of abuse. So like I said, vampires are often depicted as seducers, and when I think of something being seductive, I think of like something being tempting, but that the person kind of wants it, like turning the lights down low and putting on some music and pouring some champagne. That'd be a seduction. But this is much more like abusive, like grooming. It's darker, it's very heavy. And I think if we compare it to, say, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, which is, even though it differs from the book a lot, is one of the most accurate adaptations of Dracula, I see that as being very hot-blooded, very Catholic, very, sexy with a capital S, very lots of blood, and it's got a much more fairy tale vibe to it, and a much more, reminds me of a children's illustrated book of fairy tales. So it's got a very different feeling, even though it's dealing with a lot of the same themes and a lot of the same story points. So I think that's interesting, and he's differentiated his work that way.
But you liked it?
Yeah, I think it's good. I liked it. I think it's worth watching if you like Eggers films. I think you'll enjoy this. If you like vampire films, like I said, it's not a typical vampire film, but I think you might enjoy it. If you like Possession, that was a note of Lily Rose Depp's performance, I have to just say, is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, she must have been dehydrated after that. She really goes for it. There's a lot of flinging herself about, basically, just like in Possession. And that was, she brought that up in their first meeting, and he was like, great, I don't even have to mention this film and get her onto it. She already knows about it. And being French as well, or half French, she's a fan of Ajani as another French actress. So she's very excited to play the part. And she was really into vampires. She really loved Bela Lugosi's vampire from the Abbott and Costello films, weirdly.
Interesting.
But yeah, so she'd always liked vampires from her childhood. And so she really was on board for this and excited to be involved. And she does a phenomenal performance, a great accent, great British accent. Can't fault it.
Yep.
And yeah, I hope she gets some kind of awards buzz or something, because she really deserves it.
Yeah, I'm sure she will. So where do you rank it in Eggers films, and where do you rank it in Dracula films?
Oh, well, I can't rank all Dracula films. I haven't seen all Dracula films. Eggers, it's really hard because I think this is really good. This is really exquisitely crafted. I mean, he built this whole town. But I still think, having rewatched The Lighthouse last night, that's my fave.
Okay.
Because it's just so perfect. But I would say this is a very close run second.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, I need to rewatch his first 3 films before I can make a proper judgment. But I absolutely loved this. I thought it was great. It wasn't as art housey as I expected, to be honest. It's quite a clear narrative, because, I mean, I don't know, I thought it would be a bit more abstract and a bit less, I thought it would have a bit less dialogue explaining what's happening. But it is actually, it sticks to the story, and it actually just adds lots of little bits. And apparently there is stuff that he learned from Christopher Columbus, because he rewatched Harry Potter in order to see how Chris Columbus established a castle.
Interesting.
So,
Well, Chris Columbus apparently had that same comment that you had about stop saying everything, we need to see it.
Right, yeah. There you go. But yeah, I think it looks absolutely gorgeous, and it's a fine film to watch in the winter time. Because that's one of the...
It's a Christmas film.
It is a Christmas film.
Could be on our alternative Christmas film list.
Indeed. Because one of the odd things about the Werner Herzog version is it's shot in the summer. So there's like leaves on the trees and stuff, which is odd. And also, it was a lot more colourful than I expected it to be, because from the marketing and everything, you think it's all just going to be washed out greys. But there's some very vivid saturation going on in some of the scenes, and it's like the bit where the ship's sailing across the sunset, and I wondered whether that was a nod to the original Nosferatu, because obviously the original Nosferatu, it's got different tints for different scenes, and I was like, is he nodding towards that? Is he?
Well, no, I can answer that question for you,
okay,
because somebody asked. And so I had the same feeling, because when I first saw footage of it, it was all I saw was the blue, the kind of night scenes, which are very blue and white, black and white style, blue tinted black and white, I should say.
Yeah.
And So, of course, I thought, the whole film's going to be like this. It's going to be like black and white, like The Lighthouse, but it'll be tinted colours instead. But then some footage was released of the day scenes, which are just desaturated colour. And so I thought, what's going on here? Did the studio insist?
Yeah.
And so somebody did ask him, did you originally plan to shoot this in black and white? And he said, no, they chose to do the night scenes in blue because it was night and they felt that was just a good way to differentiate it. But I do feel there's got to be an influence from the original. Because it uses those colour washes, as you say. But
if you watch the right print.
Apparently it wasn't his plan to do it in black and white, but I would have loved to have seen that version where it was just tinted in these colours. But it still is a great film and exquisitely crafted, beautiful to watch. Fantastic.
Yes. But amazing sets. The sound design is incredible. The score's just great. And lots of people have been complaining about people laughing in the cinema. But I will say there's some parts that are clearly supposed to be funny, like
Schnapps.
Yeah, exactly. Willem Dafoe's character is the comic relief in lots of ways, and it's interesting how much more of a role he has because he's a lot more Van Helsing in this version. Because again, in the other versions, that character isn't actually as actively involved in hunting Nosferatu, and he isn't this strange kind of occult expert that he is in this version. He's just literally a doctor. He's just like, she has aesthetics. She's got too much blood and stuff. But
that was one thing, because I did ask Rob this when we were chatting, but I asked him when did he dip into the book? Because if you watch the credits, it does acknowledge Dracula, and as we've said in our vampire episode previously, Nosferatu was sued by Bram Stoker's widow for being a rip-off of Dracula.
Yeah, although I didn't actually realise, they do credit, not the original version of Nosferatu literally does say in the credits based on Dracula. I thought they'd just ripped it off and then tried to pretend that they hadn't even based it on it, but they do actually say adapted from Bram Stoker's Dracula. They just forgot to ask permission or refused to ask permission.
But the point being, I asked him, when did he dip into Dracula? Because obviously this is a Nosferatu remake.
Yeah.
Nosferatu is based on Dracula, so there's a lot of the same beats, but when did he go back? When did he feel like he had to go back to the book to add? And he said the main thing that he added from the book was this Van Helsing type character, which isn't prominent, as you said, in Nosferatu, but he felt like it was needed. And interestingly, Willem Dafoe says that's the character he thinks Rob would play, because Robert Eggers was an actor at one point, was also a production designer, and so he felt like he was playing Robert Eggers in the movie.
Right.
So if you want to know what Robert Eggers is like, go watch this movie and go watch Willem Dafoe.
Right. Well, there you go. And I'd also say, obviously the whole Nicholas Hoult, Willem Dafoe, and Aaron Taylor-Johnson, who we haven't even mentioned, he's great.
Yeah, he's really
great.
Good, yeah.
The whole thing in the third act of them going off to get Nosferatu, that's very Dracula.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the other versions, that just doesn't happen. It's just Nick.
I think
that
the
character's
castle
just at home.
Has appeared in a Dracula film as well.
Yeah, no, they shot bits in the actual castle from Werner Herzog's version as well. But then most of it was sets and stuff. I just thought it was great. It was just lovely to look at, and just the atmosphere of it and everything. And also, it keeps with the tradition of Nosferatu films that you've got to have a cat or two in there.
Really?
There's some cat stuff. There's cats
a
in
lot
every
of rat
version.
Stuff, so
and lots of rat stuff.
That might explain the cats.
Cats and rats. Yeah, they just had to have cats on set to deal with all these rats.
It's very plaguey. We haven't even mentioned the plaguey element.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because The Lighthouse was the last film I went to see before we went into lockdown. And it took on a different vibe after being in lockdown, because I was kind of like, oh, they went crazy really fast, and then I was like, oh no, I get it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And this feels like it'd be interesting. I think the script apparently hasn't changed very much in many years, but I think it's, having the whole world gone through a plague recently, I think we're going to view that in a different way as well. So I think that's an interesting part of the film.
Yeah.
That isn't in Dracula, really.
No, so that was the main thing that makes Nosferatu different, really, is the whole bringing the plague in. And I like that.
That ties in with apparently the folkloric vampire of disease.
Yeah.
all of that. So,
So yeah,
interesting.
really good. But yes, going back and watching the other ones, I was kind of surprised how much this still followed the original, but also he just brings loads of new stuff into it. So in some ways, it reminded me of the Suspiria remake in that it didn't need to exist, but I'm really glad he does. Yeah, because he added loads of stuff that didn't need to be there. But I enjoyed watching it, and they used real wolves.
Yeah.
They tried to kill Nicholas Hoult with real wolves.
I mean, he loves to punish his actors, doesn't he?
And also, one of my favourite bits about this film is, and I don't think this happens, but very wisely, Robert Eggers decides not to include a scene where Nosferatu is comically carrying coffins around. That doesn't happen, does it?
No,
because in the original and the Herzog version, there's just this ridiculous scene where Nosferatu is just carrying coffins under one arm, full of the earth from which he was, the land he came from, and just loading up a cart full of coffins. And it's so silly. It just like the idea, just this. Nosferatu, all spindly. I know he's a vampire and he's strong, but it just looks ridiculous.
I think that must have been the first thing on his list that
it's like, no, not going to do that. Because he gets his power. He can be out in the daytime as long as he's got his soil with him. So he's just walking around the town, just holding this coffin under his arm. And it's just absolutely... So yeah.
The coffin in this is so heavy.
Yeah.
And
that would be absurd.
Metal.
Yeah.
And,
So,
based on Polish coffins, apparently.
Yeah. Oh, really? But yeah, so he knew what to cut out. Well, there's one scene in the original comparing carnivorous plants to vampires, and he doesn't do that in this one, does he?
No.
There you go.
No mention of bats either.
No mention of bats. Anyway, I loved it. I think this is how you do remakes. Just do one every half century or so. There you go. So I look forward in 2075, we'll be getting the next version of Nosferatu. I wonder what that will be like.
Who'll be directing that?
Exactly. Probably some whippersnapper that hasn't even been born while we're in the ground. I'm sure you'll still be here in 50 years, Nadine. You're all right. But yes, that was great. So go
and watch it if you can get a seat in the cinema.
Exactly.
But it has expectations were quite a lot lower.
Yeah.
And it's defied expectations. It's already made 100 million at the box office. It's barely been out a week.
Yeah. So good for it. Well done, brilliant. Nosferatu. You are listening to the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio, and today we have been discussing Robert Eggers and Nosferatu, but now it is time to talk about some very different films. So yes, I'm going to kick things off by talking about Better Man, which has been hotly anticipated on this show, by me at least. You may remember us talking about the fact that this film was coming out with Robbie Williams, played by a chimpanzee. Yeah, with some absolute bafflement. We were, just very intrigued to find out what this was going to be. So unfortunately, we then found out it would be a motion capture CGI chimpanzee, not a real chimpanzee. But nevertheless, we remained intrigued. So, so this is an odd one because it seemed to me that this film existing felt like proof that we were living in a simulation and that, the world couldn't possibly be real if we're getting biopics of famous pop stars starring chimpanzees. So I was looking forward to this film, but more in a morbid curiosity kind of way. A what is this kind of way. However, what I was not expecting was for this film to turn out to be a stone cold masterpiece and one of the best films of 2024 for me. Because within 15 minutes, I was in floods of tears, and then throughout the film, I was in tears, and I was completely and utterly engaged and moved by the film. And I honestly, I wasn't expecting that.
No. I wouldn't expect that from a Robbie Williams chimp movie. I
know. But I think what's amazing about this film is I don't think the film would have worked at all if it didn't have a CGI chimpanzee as the lead character. So on the surface, this is quite a by-the-numbers biopic. So it starts off with Robbie's childhood, which is often the worst part of a biopic. But here, it works completely because instead of an annoying child actor, we've got an adorable chimp. And then we've got the strained relationship with his father, which is another cliche. But even this is incredibly heartwarming, and not just because of the chimp, but because of an incredibly incredible performance by Steve Pemberton of Inside Number 9 and League of Gentlemen, etc., who deserves all the awards. And then also we've got the whole drug addiction element, which again, I think works better with a chimp. And I think Robbie Williams himself has addressed this, as it makes it seem even more sad and pathetic seeing a chimpanzee take cocaine than a man. And somehow it really does make you more sympathetic. Because of course, a problem with a lot of these, stories of pop stars who fall into addiction is there's an element of, oh, boo-hoo, you've got millions of pounds and you can afford to have a drug problem. I'd love to be able to afford to have a drug problem. Yet by turning him into a chimp, you have the utmost sympathy for him. And that's the genius of the film. So it seems like an absurd device and an absolutely insane creative decision. But actually it allows them to explore the themes of the film in a far more powerful way. So Robbie Williams himself has said, and it's actually said in the film, that he felt unevolved, and that was why he chose to represent himself as a chimp. And essentially this is a 2-hour therapy session for Robbie Williams, because I'd say often it's a red flag for the subjects of a biopic to be involved in a film. But I'd say in this case, his involvement is vital because it's an exploration of his own psyche. And it's also, at its heart, it's a really poignant examination of mental illness. And it deals with Robbie Williams' like crippling self-doubt, his depression, brushes with suicidal thoughts. And the way it deals it's just wonderfully realized on screen. So there's like Williams's inner demons are kind of appearing as ape versions of himself in the crowd, like taunting him. And I just think that's really effective. So most of the film builds up towards his performance at Nebworth, which was a big deal. And it culminates in this really amazing set piece that you're just like, wow. And there are so many moments in this film that just made me go, now that's cinema. There's so many great shots, and it's just like these incredible musical sequences with, fantastic choreography, and like loads of it just gave me goosebumps. So yeah, I just completely blindsided me. I just wasn't expecting that. There's some, fake there's some fake Gallagher brothers in there. That's
what
great.
Animals are they?
No, that's the thing. I do think maybe they should have also been apes because they're just humans.
I think they should be Neanderthals.
I was thinking, but I guess it has to be just Robbie being the ape, and that's kind of the whole point. But it would have been, I don't know, there was part of me that was just like, why isn't the rest of Take That an ape? But that's not the other members of Take That were confident and evolved, but Robbie wasn't. So there you go. But yeah.
And nobody comments at any point that he's a chimpanzee.
It's not, at no point is it addressed. It's not addressed, and that's kind of the point of it. That's I suppose the idea is that is just how Robbie Williams sees himself. The rest of the world, they just see a man, but Robbie Williams sees this chimp. But yeah, I just thought it was so good. My only criticism would be I would have liked to have seen more of Robbie Williams's later obsession with aliens that he got obsessed with. Because basically Robbie Williams in later life became obsessed with UFOs and stuff and ghosts, and tried to make a documentary with John Ronson about aliens, and he's gone really down the rabbit hole with the supernatural and aliens and stuff, but there's none of that in this film. But maybe that's another film.
Maybe that's
that'll be the sequel, because I'd love that. But instead it's more about his just realizing that becoming at peace with his level of fame or whatever. Anyway, it really surprised me because I was like, I thought I'd enjoy it, but I didn't think I'd be so moved by it.
It's interesting. There's a lot of these weird biopics at the moment. We had the Pharrell Williams Lego biopic.
Oh, yeah. So is this going to be a thing?
Are we going to see Madonna stop motion?
Yeah.
Arctic monkeys with actual Arctic monkeys?
There we go. Yeah. But yes, I think the lesson to be learned from this film is that all biopics should replace the lead character with a CGI animal of some sorts.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you have suggestions of biopics you'd like to see.
Yeah, and what animals you'd like to replace the lead with.
Exactly.
Do let us know at pictureshow@brumradio.com.
Please do. Nadine, you seen anything at the cinema? Or just in general?
Not at the cinema, but I have seen I've seen loads. I've seen Unbecoming a Guinea Fowl.
Oh, yeah.
So from the same director who did I'm Not a Witch.
Oh, that was good.
So this is about a Zambian family, a death in the family, and some dark secrets that come out because of that. But it is quite funny in a lot of ways. And sometimes that tone maybe is at odds with the subject matter. But I thought it was a really interesting film. I love the opening. We have a character dressed as Missy Elliott from the She's a music video, not as a sci-fi character as Peter Bradshaw interpreted her outfit.
I see.
Not as up on his 90s hip-hop as me, I imagine. But that in itself was interesting. And she's playing this amazing song by a group I'd never heard of called the Lijadu Sisters, and the song's called Come On Home. Do check it out, because it's a song from the 70s and it's just really funky, and I've been blasting it out ever since. But like I said, it deals with these kind of dark family secrets, and the idea of it, I mean, maybe this will give it away, but guinea fowls apparently are these animals that make a noise when predators are around. So they warn the other animals. So they're really useful animals in that way. And I think, that's a great representation for people who actually, speak up about bad people and actually have the bravery victims that come forward and things like that. So I thought it was a really interesting film. It's quite shot in a very art house way. It may not be the most accessible film for everybody, and the end is a little unreal in a way, I guess. It kind of, and I've noticed this a lot in films recently, of films being mostly realistic and then having like one or two scenes that kind of, become more magical realist or something. And I don't know how I feel about that personally. But I think it's a film worth checking out. And Rugana, I might be pronouncing this wrong, Rugana Nyoni, is a really interesting filmmaker, and I want to see more of her work. Another film that I watched that had that very realist thing to a point was Andrea Arnold's Bird. I'm not a big fan of poetic realism or social realism, I have to say. So I went in with that mindset, and I'm not the biggest Andrea Arnold fan. I think this is my favourite Andrea Arnold film that I've seen. Barry Keoghan's in it. It seems like he's the main character if you see the marketing, but he's not. The main character is played by a young actress, Nikia Adams, who's absolutely fantastic, and the art house darling Franz Rogowski is in it, who is actually the character of Bird. Yeah, again, like I said, I'm not the biggest Andrea Arnold fan, but I did find this a bit more engaging than her other films. The actors are all fantastic and they give fantastic performances. I think there's a lot of ideas in there, and maybe if the story had been simplified, it could have explored those ideas a bit better. And again, it dips into this kind of magical realist element at one point, which feels like a departure from the realism of the rest of the film. But yeah, it's an interesting film. Check it out if you've got Mubi. But yeah, it's a bit messy for me. There's some great moments. It's got a lot of energy to it, and some fantastic moments of Barry Keoghan on a scooter, on an e-scooter, which I liked, with some music, and that worked for me. But yeah, on the whole, didn't love it, didn't hate it.
Very good. Is that it? Splendid. Well, heed our recommendations, people.
Yeah.
Go and see what we've told you to go and see.
Just go and see movies, man.
Go and see movies, man.
Get out to the cinema. See them on the big screen.
Yeah.
Or on your little screen.
That's right. And tell us what animals you think should play celebrities in films.
Yeah.
There we go. That's about all we've got time for this week. But of course, as always, we just have time for Nadine's roundup of local events.
So, Whatever Pays the Rent has a screening of School of Rock, a free screening for their second birthday party on the 18th of January at the Mockingbird. They'll also be continuing with their £5 90-minute movie club screenings at the Hare and Hounds. So they're going to be showing Stop Making Sense on the 22nd of January and a favourite of mine, Submarine, on the 19th of February. I've always wanted to programme that. It's a great film. Memories of Murder is our next screening, Screen B14, on the 10th of February at the Mockingbird. And we'll also be showing our first ever live score and film screening for Metropolis. And that will be at the Hare and Hounds on the 27th of March, including Snacks by Blowwater, and will feature the premiere of a live synth score by Ziggurat. So do check that out. Tickets are available now. Check out our socials at Screen B14.
When's the live score for Megalopolis happening?
I've no idea, and I feel like I've just missed out something as well.
Well, it's too late now.
And Soul City Arts are screening No Other Land on Friday, the 24th of January. So do check that out on Eventbrite.
Very good. Some exciting stuff coming up, as always, Nadine. That's it for the Brum Picture Show this week. Do be sure to join us next time. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from me, Paul.
It's goodbye from me, Count Orlok.
And it's goodbye from me, Nadine.
Oh, brilliant. We've replaced Rory with Count Orlok. That's an improvement.
Yay.
Goodbye.
Bye.
You have been listening to The Brum Picture Show, a Screen B14 production for Brum Radio. Tune in next time for more film fun, and don't forget to email us at pictureshow@brumradio.com. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Oh, yeah. Have you noticed X has started to do this AI thing?
Oh, they got Grok. Yeah, I want to have a little play with that.
I clicked on it and it described me and it was quite good. I might use it. Should I read it to you? Yeah. I might put it in my bio. I don't think it's entirely accurate, but so it says, Nadine, the mastermind behind Mahamedia UK, is a film aficionado and programmer deeply involved in Birmingham's indie cinema scene,
Wow.
where she hosts unique screenings and Q&As for her short film Rushed and other cinematic gems.
What?
She believes in the power of film to entertain, provoke thought, and support good causes, showcasing her passion through events like Noirvember and fundraisers.
That's impressive.
They've been sharing film event details, podcast episodes, and personal anecdotes like dreaming of Cillian Murphy watering plants.
What? Wow. Well, you do have an online presence.
I know.
Did you just ask it who is Nadine?
No, I didn't ask it anything. I just clicked on this weird new button and it just described me slightly inaccurately.
Well, it's not describing me.
That's interesting. You haven't done anything. That's
I know.
why.
Oh, hang on. Let me ask it. Who is Paul Vernon? Okay, it's thinking of an answer. Paul Vernon is a name associated with several individuals across different fields. Film and television. There's a Paul Vernon who has worked in the film industry, particularly noted for roles in art departments, production design, and as a property master. This is quite depressing, actually. This is like all these successful Paul Vernons that I should be living the life of.
Oh dear.
He's credited for work on films like Polar, Enemy, that's the Denis Villeneuve film, and has been involved in TV series, I wouldn't do that, such as Anne with an E and Paradise Lost. Additionally, there's another Paul Vernon, who is a director, cinematographer, and editor known for his work on the short film Vermijo. So I've made no impact. Grok doesn't know who
Well, that's
I
because you
am.
haven't made 86 posts about who you are, promoting who you are.
I suppose not.
But I have to say, I think it's a little bit cheeky saying that I believe in the power of films to entertain, provoke thought and support good causes.
Yeah, you hate good causes.
How does it know that? How does it know what I believe? It hasn't checked.
Well, Grok has.
But anyway. Where were we going?
Local events, please, Nadine.
Yes, hang on.
Thank you for listening to this Brum Radio podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us on your podcast app.